Hello all, welcome to the live session of Narayana IAS Academy. The topic that we've actually picked up today is a very simple one. It is actually Hooch, and this has actually appeared both in your The Hindu as well as the Indian Express. So let us understand what kind of topics that we'll be discussing under this particular heading of Hooch. So we'll be discussing about methanol poisoning as well as the processes that are the processes that are actually involved in the production of alcohol usually, which essentially includes fermentation and distillation, and this can actually be mapped to science and technology for your prelims examination. So why are we discussing Hooch? Recently there has been a significant observation or a reporting of number of deaths and hospitalization of people in the Kallakurichi municipality of Tamil Nadu because people have actually consumed this particular spurious liquor, or it is also called as Hooch. So what is important for us to understand from this particular article is what is this liquor or Hooch and how is it actually produced, what are the impacts that it actually has on the human body, and is there any treatment available or not. So moving ahead, as I told you, there has been a question in the year 2021 in the UPSC Engineering Services examination on Hooch as well as bootlegging. Okay, so here it is important to understand these terms because sometimes even in 2024 you have certain terms that were actually given and asked which of the following it was actually relating to. So all these kind of topics are important, and specifically the methods that are used for preparation of such alcohol. What is the composition, whether it is made up of ethanol or methanol, and which of them actually has a higher boiling point when compared to that of the next one. So all this is actually very important. So moving forward, let us understand what this particular article actually is discussing about. Okay, so a significant number of people have died and many others have been hospitalized after consuming this spurious liquor or Hooch in Kallakurichi municipality of Tamil Nadu. So this is actually not the first instance that this particular incident has actually taken place. Earlier in 2021-22 there were many such instances that were actually taking place in Bihar. So we will actually look into what is this Hooch, what is the meaning of it. Okay, so it is a commonly used term which actually denotes poor quality alcohol. Okay, so this particular term is derived from Hoochinu, who are nothing but a native Alaskan tribe that was known to produce very strong liquor. And unlike branded liquor, so usually the liquor that you get in shops and other things, they are actually branded and they are produced in the factories using sophisticated equipments as well as technology. Okay, and there is sufficient quality control. But in case of Hooch, that is made in much more crude settings, and the setting is very rudimentary. And to put it simply, Hooch is an alcohol that is meant for intoxication, but in case if it is not prepared correctly, then it actually has the capacity to kill the person who has consumed it. Now let us understand how is this particular Hooch produced. Okay, so any kind of alcohol that you take, it is actually produced using two methods. One is fermentation, the other one is distillation. So let us understand what is this particular fermentation. What do they generally do in fermentation is they actually collect the sugar rich solution, that is the fruit extract and all those things, and then they make it actually react with yeast. So what is this yeast? Yeast is nothing but it is a leavening agent. So what do you mean by leavening agent? It is nothing but which is used in the dough for your breads and all those things, right, for it to rise. So this is actually yeast, and both of them are allowed to react with each other, and the end product will be the production of ethanol, that is actually the alcohol, and the next one will be carbon dioxide. So this is actually taken away and this is actually consumed as alcohol. So this is what is fermentation all about. Then what happens is, beyond a particular point, this yeast, the environment for the yeast is actually not very favorable. So the fermentation actually stops at one point, after which the distillation actually has to take place. That is characterized by constant evaporation as well as condensation. Okay, so here we need to understand what is this fermentation followed by distillation process, and whether this is perfectly taking place with all the quality checks in case of Hooch or not. Okay, so when heated, What is heated? Here the fruit extracts, which is actually rich in sugar, all those things are actually heated. The yeast over there, and then you add yeast. The yeast reacts with the sugar from the grain, the fruits, the sugar cane, etc. in order to ferment and produce a mixture containing alcohol. That we've already seen. So this is actually the age-old process which is involved in production of beer and wine, etc. But it actually comes with a basic limitation. What is that? As fermentation continues, the alcohol levels also rise. Okay, why yeast is generally employed or deployed there is to produce a maximum amount of alcohol. So when it is actually reacting and producing this alcohol, at a point the fermentation actually stops. So when the alcohol levels rise, the conditions in the mixture becomes very toxic for the yeast to thrive and to react, and eventually no more fermentation can take place. Thus, in order to make anything stronger above 14 to 18% ABV, what is ABV? This is actually alcohol by volume, which is actually a standard measure which is used to measure the quantity of alcohol which is present in a beverage. Okay, so thus to make anything stronger above 14 to 18% ABV, beverages need to be distilled. So ABV is nothing but a standard measure used worldwide in order to quantify the amount of alcohol, in this case ethanol, in an alcoholic beverage. Okay, so after this process of fermentation is done, then comes the second stage, which is nothing but distillation. So what is this? This is nothing but it is the process of physically separating this particular alcohol from the fermented mixture using two processes, that is evaporation and condensation. And in a mixture, different parts actually has different boiling points, right? And it actually gets heated up at different points. Let us actually see. So since different parts of the mixture have different boiling points, heating it up to the correct temperature makes it possible to separate only the alcohol from the water and other remnants. For example, if you see, this ethanol actually has a boiling point of 78 degrees. When the boiling point actually reaches here, the ethanol actually evaporates and gets collected in the pipe, and then when subject to condensation, this is collected as alcohol. So this is how we actually separate it by this process of distillation. So this is what it's told here. So you need to reach the correct temperature for different parts in order to for that particular ethanol or methanol to evaporate and then be subjected to condensation. Here if you see, distilled beverages or spirits are far more potent than any kind of fermented beverage. And if you see in case of hooch, that is produced using distillation of a fermented mixture, generally of locally available yeast and sugar or fruit, often the fruit waste, that as we discussed. Okay, but the setup if you see, which is actually used for the production of hooch, is not very sophisticated using good technologies and techniques, but it is very rudimentary, where you have a big vat where the mixture is actually boiled like a drum like structure, and a pipe that will actually capture and carries these alcoholic fumes, and there is another pot where the concentrated alcohol condenses. That is what we discussed. And also multiple rounds of distillation is actually required in order to produce more potent alcohol that is actually suitable for consumption. Now let us understand why this particular hooch is actually dangerous. First one, I told you it is a crude method of production, because what happens, the fermented mixture which is distilled contains more than just ethanol. Apart from ethanol, in case of hooch, what it contains, since they use many of the organic waste like even battery water and acids, etc. Here it consists of the industrial alcohol, that is methanol, which is highly toxic for the human body. Okay, and next one is there is incorrect distillation. So non-distilled alcoholic beverages like wine, they contain relatively harmless trace of methanol. But if you see, during the distillation, both ethanol and methanol are actually concentrated, and thus if this process of distillation is done incorrectly, it can lead to the end product which contains very high quantity of this toxic methanol. And next one, there is no sufficient checks that is actually done. As I told you, different parts of this particular liquid actually has different boiling points. That is what methanol has a boiling point of 64.7. This is lower than that of ethanol, that is actually 78.37. Okay, so before reaching this 78.37 degrees, at 64 itself there is actually evaporation of this particular methanol, and then that is collected in the pipe as the fumes, and then condensation actually takes place and methanol gets collected way before as a very, very toxic material over there. So this actually has to be discarded before ethanol is collected so that it is actually suitable for drinking. Okay. So during distillation, when the mixture reaches 64.7 degrees, the pot collecting concentrated alcohol begins to fill up with a highly toxic chemical, that is what is methanol, and this must be discarded for the end product to be very safe for consumption. Further, it is crucial to maintain a temperature above 78.37, that is of ethanol, but below 100 degree, that is the boiling point of water, in order to obtain safe consuming yet potent liquor. Then commercial distillers actually have all these processes, quality checked and everything prim and proper. But then, I mean, there is sophisticated equipment, etc., and multiple checks are also done in order to maintain the accuracy of the process. However, if you see Hooch makers, they have no temperature control. This means the process of distillation lacks the accuracy, which is crucial in order to make this beverage very safe as well as effective. Next, continuation of the risk. The next one is the adulterants that are used, as I told you, like organic waste, the battery acid, the industry grade methanol, are highly toxic, producing effects such as blackouts. There are memory loss as well as high drunkenness, even if you actually consume only a small quantity of this particular liquor. And in extreme cases, it can also be very, very deadly. And also, if you see, methanol or methyl alcohol can cause impaired vision. It can cause high toxicity and metabolic acidosis, which is a condition where the body produces excessive acid that becomes very difficult for the kidney to actually process and to flush out of the body. And moving on, if you see what is the treatment associated in case a person actually consumes this spurious liquor and it has succumbed to this, the treatment for this is intravenously administer this person either with ethanol or with fompizole. Okay. So what do you mean? Whether we have accessibility to this particular fompizole or not? Yes, we do, but then it is actually very, very expensive and unavailable in many parts of India. In that case, in most of the hospitals, the doctors, what do? They administer a mixture of ethanol as well as water in the ratio of 1:1. Why do they actually administer ethanol? Because it actually can inhibit the effects of methanol. Okay, so it prevents methanol's conversion into toxins and it helps in flushing the methanol out of the body either naturally or through the process of dialysis. So this is what was actually a very, very short topic of discussion. However, it has been lately in the news a couple of times, now in Tamil Nadu and previously in other states as well. So it is important to understand how the entire process actually takes place and in what way it actually becomes very, very toxic for human consumption. So with this, we've actually come to the end of the discussion of the live session. For more such live updates, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy. Thank you. Thank you so much.